Welcome to the Just Third Way podcast, where we ask the question, would you rather own or be owned? Brought to you by the Center for Economic and Social Justice at cesj.org. Hello again, podcast listeners. Welcome to the Just Third Way podcast. Today I got a special guest, someone who we're very excited to have as part of our movement. It's Gene Gordon. How you doing today, Gene?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I really appreciate you joining us, and I thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's hard to find anyone that actually does something to spread the word, and you are one of the people who have done just that, and in a very large way, really. I mean, you probably don't realize, but you've already reached probably hundreds of people who wouldn't have heard about it if it wasn't for you. So I'm excited about that. Everybody at CESJ is excited about it. I wanted to thank you for it and tell you we look forward to more good stuff like that and reaching more and more people. So I understand you're from my town down here, Atlanta, originally. Is that right?
Yeah, I lived in Atlanta for about 16 or 17 years, but I'm originally from St. Louis, but I lived most of my young adult life in Atlanta. So I pretty much call Atlanta my second home. But I originally, I call Atlanta my second home because I lived down there for, a number of years. I have my daughters and my grandchildren are still there. So I go back and forth a lot. That's like my second home, Atlanta.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I live in Woodstock, just north of Atlanta.
Yeah, Woodstock. Yeah, I've heard of it. I lived like 30 miles north of downtown Atlanta, so Woodstock was not too far from where I live.
Yeah, most people live in the suburbs. It's starting to move a little bit where there's a lot of construction for residences inside the metro perimeter or whatever. It's kind of like the Beltway in Washington.
Yeah, they're running out of room down in the Atlanta part and just north of Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is still growing very, very fast.
Right. So you have had all kind of different jobs like me. I was telling you that I'm a owner-operator right now trying to start a little trucking business and stuff like that, and you kind of done some of that kind of stuff. Is there any other,
Well, for education, I don't have a PhD, MBA or ordinary Joe Blow that's been out on the boots on the ground, working with grassroots organizations and trying to make our communities a better and safe and just place to live. I have a broad range of experience in construction, and I do a lot of that, but never went to Harvard or Yale and never went to jail, Just one that, has been out and have a deep concern for empowering, the citizens and the people.
Right. Well, I enjoyed hearing about how you ran across our stuff on a laptop. Tell us that story, how it kind of blew you away. That was really interesting how you came to know about the Just Third Way.
Well, I learned of it through a mutual friend. He told me about it, and he insisted that I contact Norm Curlin, and I called Norm Curlin, and he told me the website address, and I was sitting in the garage, and I opened my laptop, and I went to CESJ website and began to read the home page. And and then it begins to talk about how citizens can own green infrastructure and ownership, and I immediately just closed my laptop up and didn't come back to it for a few hours because this is it. This is it. This is what can really, really revolutionize the economy that in which we are now facing. And I immediately
Right.
closed my laptop because I was just blown away with the little information that I read on the homepage.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the same way it happened to me. I was just like, why hasn't everyone read this and been excited about it? And but some people, I think, realize how messed up the system is, and when they see something that sort of sets it all right and the way it should be, it's exciting.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I think it would be fair to say you really like our solutions, and you're starting to promote them everywhere you go. I think it's really neat. You were telling me that you even have been going to some seminars and group meetings, and what is it? Whole organizations, guys?
Yeah, different organizations. I participated in an event, a community event that was going on, and it was pretty much my first time out, participating in a community event and promoting the, Just Third Way and the Citizen Land Development Co-op. Our slogan is "Own or Be Owned," and it
Right.
attracted a lot of it attracted a lot of people to our booth, and it's something unheard of. It's something new. These are not new ideas. This is new, something that people never heard of.
It's
It
new to
attracted
most
a lot.
people, even though it's been around for years. The
Yeah,
schools aren't teaching them about it. The media's not
exactly.
telling them about it. So when they do hear
Yeah,
about it, it's something new.
yeah. It's something new to the community. Is something new to you know organizations, and we attracted a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of people and share these ideas and concepts with them, and they were excited about it, and because it makes sense. It made sense to them, and it's simple. It's not nothing that is complicated or too complex where the average person can understand it. It's simple. Would
Right.
you rather own or be owned?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's really beautiful how you have sort of recognized that the just third way could be better than reparations for the descendants of American slaves. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I really, the just third way to me first, and this is just my personal identification of the just third way. I tell people, I try to keep it as simple as possible, and I just tell them, hey, most think you have two sides to every coin, a heads or tails, capitalism or socialism, when there's actually three. You got a heads and a tails, and you got an edge of every coin. And I call that edge as thinking outside the box, the third way, because there's three sides to a coin. And the just third way is just another way of thinking outside the box and getting away from the norm and this neoclassical economic model that most schools are teaching. Now, when we talk about reparations to me, yes, I believe in reparations. I don't oppose it at all. But in the word reparation is the word repair. Repair.
Right.
And repair. And I don't think, and this is just my personal thoughts on reparation, I don't think that you can put a dollar amount on the atrocities that were put on slaves in the century of Jim Crow and segregated laws. I don't think you can put a dollar amount on that. However,
That's a good point.
look, looking at the just third way, I think it's better than reparations, and it's an alternative to reparations. And I received some documents yesterday on the structure on how reparation will be paid out to descendants of slaves, of American descendants of African slaves, and how monies will be paid out. And I think that the economist who is, I don't know him personally, but respect to him and those who did the research on it. But I think the structure is obsolete and is based on an old system that went into a little bit about how the money. They had four different ways on how reparations can be paid out, and one of them was, in a lump sum of payment paid to the descendants of slaves. Well, the question is, where is the money going to come from?
Right.
Government will be forced to borrow from the Federal Reserve to pay out, and they're estimating it at $17 trillion.
Tax someone.
Yeah, tax someone else or tax both. So the question is, where would the money come from? Governments will be forced to borrow the money. $17 trillion on the top of $21 trillion, where we're already at the national debt. That will shoot the national debt up to close to $40 trillion. Well, who's got to pay it back? Somebody's got to pay it back. So is it actually reparation, or is it a loan? And then another thing, as I mentioned first, is that in the word reparation is repair. I think the just third way is better and an alternative because we're looking at ways to repair the system. That's what we have to do. Repair the system. That's reparations to all citizens, to me. Repair the system, because if you pay reparations to descendants of American slaves and the system is still the way it is, then all of that is for naught. Then they came up with a way of paying reparations, free education for descendants of American slaves. Well, the educational system today is in shambles. It has to be repaired. So I think the just third way is a better way and a better alternative, because what's better? Getting a lump sum pay out, which would drive up the national debt. Somebody's got to pay it back. And then they talk about, free education. And as I mentioned, the education system it's based on neoclassical teachings, and it's obsolete. So it needs to be repaired. But I think the just third way and the Capital Homestead Act, especially if you look at the breakdown of the Capital Homestead Act, your family and children can acquire equal opportunity, have equal opportunity to share in capital ownership for generations to come going forward. I think that makes much sense than, reparations. So, but like I said in the beginning, I don't think you can put a dollar amount on the atrocity that was done on slaves and the Jim Crow and segregation laws. So the just third way is a better way. It makes sense. It's empower all Americans. And if you look at, what has happened, we can't just, yes, America has to first acknowledge its sin, which was slavery. Yes, but we got to find commonalities between the suffering of all people. I mean, look at the Native Americans. There were 12 million Indians here on America.
Right.
And in less than 9 years, there were 500,000 left. I mean, the numbers. There was over 11 million. That was total genocide. So you have to look at the whole scenario and force the ones that are out there fighting for reparations. I think we're looking at the tip of the iceberg. But it wasn't the tip of the iceberg to suck the Titanic. It was what was underneath that caused all the destruction. So I think we just need to go deeper into it and not just look at it at the surface of reparations and a payout to descendants of American slaves. We have to really, really go under and look at how this thing is going to work and why. We may get some backlash from this, but it's not going to work. The government is not going to go and borrow $17 trillion. They don't even know how they're going to reduce the national debt today. So they'll just,
Right.
it's not good for the economy at all.
Well, any solution that operates within the existing paradigm is just going to amplify the problem that you and I had talked about. How money is based on frivolous debt, consumer spending, speculation on Wall Street, government debt, and the whole scheme of compound interest. And when you put all of those together, you've got a veiled slavery system for the average working American. And until we address that, we just got a different form of slavery. The real reparation, as you and I had talked about, is to repair the flawed money system and do it in a way that empowers all citizens with ownership of the economy. And in case anyone is listening to this and they've never really heard what the main proposal is, it's really simple. Right now we're loaning money into existence for all kind of things, government debt, and, like I was saying, when you go get a credit card, you can buy anything you want, whether it helps the economy or not, whether you're wasting money. And they never had that money to begin with. At the bank, they're required to have 10% as a fractional reserve. I think they call it reserve requirement. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so if they send you a credit card with a $10,000 limit, the bank actually only has $1,000, and then you borrow the money from them and start spending it and start paying back a minimum payment. You may pay them back $30,000 over a period of time when they started with $1,000. Now, how is that just and fair? How can we have a fair, just economy with that kind of exploitation at the root of it?
Yeah, and another thing, that's what DOS for ESJ and CSJ and what our mission is we have to go out and educate on the banking system and how fractional lending works, because 97% of all the money in the world is debt. I'm gonna repeat that.
Yeah.
97% of all the money that's circulating in the world is debt, and
which means it can't be paid back.
it can't be back, and 97%. And back in 1930, when the big crash happened back in 1930 and 1932, they passed legislation which was called the Glass-Steagall Act to protect the society from something happening like that again. And President Clinton, during his administration, he repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, and that gave that just gave banks, they create money out of nothing. And as you were mentioning,
and they invested in all kind of different schemes.
Yeah, they speculate with it, and when you do that, they speculated with on depositors' money on anything, and that's what the Glass-Steagall Act did. But what happens is with the fractional lending, they're creating money, Dave, out of thin air that's not backed by anything. Now, if you and I went and got a machine and start manufacturing money, that's fraud.
They'd throw us under the jail.
We'll be in jail. If accountants did it, that's cooking the books, making it
right.
That's what, if governments can do it, it's legal. And that's what DOSPA, ESJ, and CSJ is all about, is going out and educating. We're taking a more education approach to this mission and this movement.
Right. And like I was saying, if anyone hasn't heard this plan before, it's real simple. Instead of banks loaning money into existence for government debt and all this other stuff, they would only be able to loan it into existence for a feasible growth of a corporation. But the money that they, create that way would flow to each citizen. Every year you take the annual growth rate of the economy, divide it by the number of citizens, and right now that's between $7,000 and $10,000, so per person. So you would have an investment voucher of $10,000 a year, perhaps, and you take that and you invest in dividend-paying corporations that are growing, and then you start to receive the dividends as well as the growth in the value of the shares over time. And that's what we're saying. It empowers generations, because not only does that happen to you right now, but also anyone that's born from the time they're a baby, from the age 0 on up, it would be accumulating for their life. It'd actually be more or less replacing Social Security eventually. And but you would even get the dividends every year before retirement that you could spend in any way you want. So it would basically address the problem of wealth disparity and, homelessness and lack of good health care. There's so many things that if people had basic incomes, some of the projections, you actually, after you get middle age, you're already getting 30 or 40,000 a year in dividends.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even count the eventually like $1 million worth of the actual value of the stock by the time you retire. So it's just a better way. It turns around from debt exploiting people to empowering people. And we would do it in a way that is sort of like credit unions, where you actually have a voting share in the central bank also. So the regional Fed would be operated like a credit union. And right now it's not transparent. We don't know what they're doing for sure. They put out these little press releases every now and then, or some politician will get in there and find out some information. And like after that financial crisis in 2008, we found out they sent trillions of dollars all over the world to other banks. And where do these guys get the authority to do all this stuff? It's just crazy.
They bailed out Wall Street, $700 billion to bail out
Right.
Wall Street, but yet the citizens were left hanging, lost homes and things like that. We have to really educate on the purpose of the Federal Reserve and the central banking system, how it was formed and the purpose it was formed on. Back in 1913, right, when the Federal Reserve was formed, it was formed to create money to better the economy. And what happened was, when America got into World War I, governments was forced to borrow to finance the war, and which drove America into debt. And, we just have to educate the people on the laws of the Federal Reserve Bank, Section 13 of the Federal Reserve Act, and utilize that. We're not, and if you go back and study history, central banks was abolished 8 times. So it was in existence, and governments did away with it 7 to 8 times. So it's not, and this is not, a lot of things that people don't understand when you talk about the Federal Reserve and talk about confronting the Federal Reserve on the laws that are written in the Federal Reserve Act. Ordinary people may think, oh, you're coming up with against the Federal Reserve. No, you're not coming up against the Federal Reserve Bank. Let's make that clear. We're not coming up against the Federal Reserve Bank. What we're asking the Federal Reserve to do is do what it was designed to do. That's all.
Right. So true. So true. That's a good point. And also, some people who might hear this, maybe if they're part of a descendant of American slaves movement, they might say, so you want to just use us to further CESJ's agenda, right? We had kind of talked about that, but I think that's a natural sort of question that someone might have. How would you address?
Yeah, I want to say this. Dots for ESJ and CSJ. CSJ's been in existence since 1984, almost 30 plus years. These are not CSJ's ideas. These ideas have been in existence for years. That's but true. No one has pioneered it other than CSJ. And Docs for ESJ, when they learned of these concept and ideals. ESOP laws are in the House of Congress today. This is not something new. Now, Dots for ESJ is just want to be a catalyst with joint venture of CESJ to go out and get this information to American citizens. That's all. But let me remind you.
And you built a website, right?
Yes, we built a website. You can go on the website at dots4esj.org. And you can visit our website and get more information. You also can go on CESJ.org website, or tons of information. But as I was saying, Dots for ESJ, and along with CESJ, since they've been in existence, I think we have taken on the most challenging task there is in America. And that task is changing the minds of people, showing them a new idea, a new paradigm.
That's a great looking website. I just went to that.
Yeah, we have to come up with more innovative ways on how to make everybody prosperous, and innovative ways on building sustainable, safe, and just communities. I mean, that's what Dots for ESJ is all about. So it's not about furthering CESJ's agenda. I strongly 100%, 1,000% believe in it, and because it's right. It's right for the American people. It's right for the descendants of slaves, just to get this understanding on what our money system and our monetary system, how this thing is structured. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us. We've taken it on, and I myself, Dots for ESJ, is willing to do it, to go out and educate the people on what's really, really, really going on within the money system and the monetary system, and repairing. Back to reparations, we have to repair the systemic challenges and barriers that have been put before us, and remove those barriers. So Dots for ESJ is not just, based or structured, and its foundation is not based around programs. Organization has to start finding innovative ways to change policies and systems. And I think philanthropies and funding and all that, funding foundation, they're realizing that, we've got enough programs. Let's start to fund, social change. I was listening to the new president of the Ford Foundation the other day, and they were saying the exact same thing. We got to find ways to let's invest in policy and system change, and that's what Dots, along with CESJ, is all about: policy and system change.
Right. Well, that's a great looking website. I was just, flipping through it here, and I just want to reiterate, if anyone wants to go there, it's DAS, like Descendants, American Slaves, the number 4, and then ESJ.org. So that's economic social justice. So DAS for ESJ.org. You've really done a lot of work there. That's hats off to you. That's quite an accomplishment. I built a few websites, and it takes a long time to put this much stuff together.
Yeah, we still got a little tweaking to do with it. We've been working on it, but it's up, and we still got a little tweaking here and there to do with it. As you said, it takes a while to get it exactly where you want it to be, but it's a lot of information on there, along with CESJ.org. I mean, it's just a library on CESJ.org, so feel free to visit their website. It's a ton of information, but I tell you that information, it will be very, very beneficial to you, the listeners, and your children. That's another thing. Academia. We've got to get this information into academia. And CSJ has launched this Justice University, and we're going to try hard to get Justice University implemented in universities. It should be taught K through 12 and university and colleges, because they're being taught on what I call a neoclassical system, and it's obsolete. A neoclassical model.
It's top down, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's top down, and that's exactly what it is. It's teaching on, from the top to the bottom. CSJ along with DOS ESJ, our teaching is bottom up, from the bottom up. We taking the poorest to the poorest for every citizen. America's got millions of people sleeping under bridges and on the street, homeless people, and yet we're the richest country in the world. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Crazy. And you're also interested in the CLDC, right? That's the Citizens Land Development Co-op. So you have a vision for something like that happening in your area there in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, the Citizen Land Development Co-op, it's just giving citizens of the community opportunities to own their communities and own the land, to have a share of land ownership, and it's just a great way to get ownership into the hands of the citizens. I think when citizens own their community, they protect their community. And Citizen Land Development Co-op is geared around building sustainable, safe, and just communities. But ownership is going into the hands of the citizens that live there. And I think that's just awesome, And under the Capital Homestead Act, I think that's just awesome. And when I heard of it, I was like, especially here in St. Louis, I mean, we've got, acres of empty property and land within the urban city and in rural areas also, where the city government can't even afford to maintain them. They just put out an RFP, a request for proposal, that they're now trying to subcontract the maintaining, the cutting the grass of the vacant lots and cleaning up. They're trying to outsource them now because it's too much coming out their budgets to pay such workers to maintain it. It's just too much, and they can't afford it, so they're thinking about outsourcing it. Well, with the Citizen Land Development Co-op, it's on the website and how it's structured, and you can go to DOS for ESJ and take a look at the Citizen Land Development Co-op. And it's where the citizens, the city government would transfer the land that they don't know what to do with it. They can't continue to maintain it because it's taking a big hit on their budget. And it's over 1,500 to 2,000 acres of land here in the urban city, over 35,000 empty properties in the city of St. Louis that city government don't know what to do with it. So they said they're looking for someone with a plan. So I think Citizen Land Development Co-op is something that we are eventually in the future will present to them and see what happens. But I think when citizens own something, you take better care of it, you take pride in ownership, and educating people on the power of ownership is very important.
Right. And one way to spread the word about these things is Justice University. And you actually have put together some sessions, or trying to put together some sessions where people can sort of do preliminary Justice University sort of as a way to practice setting up eventually what we're going to have. So if anyone in the St. Louis area would like to participate in like a little conference where you learn about the Just Third Way, it's what we're calling Justice University, I would encourage them to go to that website and contact Gene. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Justice Universities, we're going to launch, we're planning to launch in August our first seminar, and it's just, to give an outline to the visitors that come out on what Justice University is all about. And Justice University is pretty much, the curriculum is, teaching what is money, what is property, what is power. Most people don't understand this, what money is, and
Right.
what property is. The property is not the thing that you own. Property is the fruits and rights. That's the property. So that's what we're going to be educating on, and what money is. Money is a yardstick in which to measure the value of, even exchange. If you, Dave, made hats and I made coats, and you needed a coat and I needed a hat, and we made an exchange, well, we just exchanged. That was money exchange. And just to keep it simple, so we have to understand what money is. The average person, I say 98% of the people don't understand what money is. The difference between money and currency. So that's what we'll be covering, and with a lot more very important information with the Justice University. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's what people need to participate in, is education and learn about the principles behind how things really work and how they should work. I totally agree with that, and I'm excited that you're doing that, and I hope to help in any way that I can.
All the listeners out there, I encourage you to go to DOTS for ESJ to get more information on what our movement and our mission is, and I also encourage you to go to cesj.org. There's a whole wealth of information on cesj.org's website. There's more there that you can learn, and I encourage you to join on to DOTS for ESJ and CSJ. Come and join on, and let's go out and build people power that we need, and help us and help each other change the system. We've got to remove these systemic challenges and barriers that has been put before us for not just descendants of American slaves, but descendants of immigrants, descendants of American slave owners, descendants of Native Americans. I encourage you to go on our website and take a look. Our contact information is there, and also visit CESJ website.
Thank you very much for saying what you just said, because there are so many people that I think are, thinking about my group and, what we have been through, and you took it a step farther, and it's almost like in the model of the love of Jesus Christ, you just mentioned the descendants of the persecutors. That's something that I don't even know if I could do, but as a descendant of American slave owner, let me say to you, I will tell you the opposite, and that is, if it turns out that there's a way to test the Just Third Way by only letting descendants of American slaves participate, I personally would be in favor of that, because I love the idea, and I think it's going to work in any way that it can be implemented. So I think that is,
Yeah, because what is, we don't, and it's on the website. Frederick Douglass says, I didn't know I was a slave till I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Descendants of American slaves, you got wage slaves, charity slaves, welfare slaves, debt and consumer slaves. So we're all a slaves to the system, and we don't even realize it.
So true.
Yeah. We're all a slave to the system because we don't understand the system, and not to belittle or take anything from anyone, but we at DOTS, we got to find the commonalities of the suffering of all people. Dr. Martin Luther King, his whole mission was based around the poor, the poor, the poor, the poor. Scriptures of the Bible talks about justice and the poor people. So
Right.
we've got to we're more into inclusion rather than exclusion, and those are things that I think that's where we will win at, because we're geared around inclusion rather than exclusion. And exclusion, I mean, look where it's got us. We're still where we were 60 years ago. It's got us
Well,
nowhere.
you truly have love in your heart, and that's what it's going to take to be a leader. A servant leader is what we're looking for, and I nominate you because I am not hearing any of this unselfishness coming from many other people.
And not to put on the religious part, but God's favor is on. Too many of us have, Dave, and I don't want to go in depth with this. We become too self-serving, and when you become
Right.
self-serving, it's never going to come back to reward you. God's favor is on those who have become selfless. Think
That's
of
so
what
true.
you can do for others and how you can impact the lives of others. I think that's where God's favor is today. I honestly think that, and I believe that. I know that's where His favor is.
Hats off to you and all the work that you're doing, and honored to have you as a guest, and I hope to have you back again soon. I guess we'll talk again. Thank you for being on the
Dave.
podcast, Gene.
Okay, well, thanks for having
right.
me. It was a pleasure to be here.
You bet. We'll talk to you soon. You can join CESJ by going to cesj.org and clicking on participate, and you can become a paying member for $25 per year, and also a student membership is $15 per year, and that qualifies you for discounts on our materials such as books, which you can buy many of and distribute to your friends and family. And also, if you'd like to participate and comment on the podcast, feel free to call. I have a voicemail set up. I'd like to hear what you have to say, and I'll play it on the podcast. The number is 678-719-2840. Own or be owned.